Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Loot Goblin Marketplace. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to go over a list of DM that guy archetypes with a fellow creator that goes by the name Zill from the Twisted Pine Tavern. How's it going?
It's going all right. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of the show, longtime viewer.
First time caller. That's not
caller.
even true.
That's not even true.
It's like the fourth or fifth time caller, actually. It's always fun to have you on the channel.
Thank you.
So before we actually jump into the archetypes, I think it's important to establish what exactly is like that guy. It's basically anyone at the table that is a problem, and as the Dungeon Master, they have a lot of power and they can be annoying in many different ways. So we're going to be going over kind of a variety of different types of that guy, because at your table, you might have people that are annoying for different reasons. So today we'll be ranking them in kind of like a tier list to determine what's the most egregious and what's not too bad. Infernote is an all-in-one TTRPG companion app with a ton of features. I really like that Infernote is truly a one-time purchase, which you get to keep for life. That comes with the guarantee that there will be zero AI-generated elements, no AI art usage, and only human effort. You can create pages and notes to keep track of all your NPCs, location, and quests. They even have a loot tracker that makes keeping inventory on all these random items scattered throughout your world even easier. Their tagging system and smart search makes finding that random NPC or item you forgot the name of easy. Players who don't care about all that DM nerd accounting will be happy to hear that Infernote offers the ability to fully customize their character sheet, making it compatible with all game systems. You have the option to use their 5e template or import a character sheet from D&D Beyond if you'd like to, with many more templates on the way. Be sure to check out their Kickstarter page, where you can find a free open beta available. They even plan on it having a fully functional virtual tabletop and the ability to join a virtual tabletop session in-app or through the web browser, so even players without Infernote can play. This is a huge undertaking, but I know the Twisted Pine Tavern crew have it covered. Right in front of us, we have like S through D for rankings, S being salvageable, A being someone who's like annoying at times, but not too bad, B being someone who's bad, but it's playable, you know, there's not a lot of D&D in town, it's your best choice at the moment. We've all had those games, we've all had those RPG horror stories. When you get to C, it's like people who can't be salvaged, as in like you've talked to them, you've tried to work through it, they're still being that guy.
The I can fix him doesn't apply to this group.
Yeah, you've tried fixing him for 3 years. Now you have a 50-minute RPG horror story that me or Den of the Drake or Crick Grab or a bunch of people have read at this point.
Right, yeah.
And then finally there's D, that's don't play with them no matter what. This is someone where the first time they do something, it's so egregious, you're like, you know what? It's not worth my time. Which I don't know if you've ever had someone like that, Zill. Have you ever had a DM so bad you just walk out mid-session or after the first one?
Not a DM that I walked out mid-session, but I had a DM, and we might get to this at some point, but long story short, had a DM that killed a player in session 1, and that can happen, but just the way he did it, it was very much everyone knew there will not be a session 2.
Yeah, it's like this will not be the only time he does that, probably.
Exactly.
So before we jump into it, I just want to shout out, I found this off Reddit, and I actually added a couple of my own. There was originally 18 really good that guy archetypes, and there's 2 more that are like bonuses. When we put up the text, we'll show who the author is for each one, as this is kind of like a compilation. Without further ado, we'll just jump right into it with the Attention Deficit DM, and I don't know if you want to take it away, Zill.
Sure. The ADDM has a nasty habit of constantly adding new stuff to their games. Splat books, homebrew, even pop culture stuff from anime and movies. It doesn't really matter if they fit the theme or genre of the campaign, they're cool and awesome, so in they go. It might be possible to make a Harry Potter, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z campaign in the Middle Ages, but before you can finish the sentence, the ADDM has already decided to shake things up again by adding some more new stuff to the game. Another thing that this DM might do is suddenly decide that they want to change game systems mid-campaign. Switching from one game system or edition to another, even if they're similar, like 3rd edition D&D to 5th edition, is very difficult and time-consuming. Players need to learn all kinds of new rules, and the conversion of PCs to the new system will always result in the loss of something. Thanks to all these additions, the game's tone, story, and balance will go all over the place, but none of that matters because the ADDM will eventually become bored or lose interest with their game, and will end it with no conclusion. But don't worry, they have this new idea for a game that is much better, and thus the cycle begins again.
I've definitely had players like this, and I've had DMs like this, obviously, as well, where they're always kind of chasing that new shiny thing.
Mm-hmm. I just watched this new anime and it had a cool thing, so we're doing that. By the way, it is mech suits in a fantasy setting, but we'll make it work.
I feel like the issue is usually they're rushing to get to the good stuff, and then, when they watch the next episode of a different anime, suddenly that's the thing they want to rush to. There's no cohesion, kind of what they're pointing out here. I find it annoying. I don't find it much more egregious than that, though.
No, I agree. It can be annoying at times. I ran a game kind of like this, but the point was to be like this. It was a game I called the Multiverse game, and it was based on a different TTRPG system, and the whole point was essentially any universe, anything you've seen or watched or read is technically accessible, and there were very few rules on it. The whole point was just build a mishmash whatever character with whatever gear and have fun. And nobody went into it with expectations of super structured rule sets or anything like that. That we had fun with that. You can bring this kind of concept into a game, but otherwise, if it's trying to cram it into a normal, to a degree, game, it would be annoying. But I do think just annoying at worst.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Annoying at worst, and they got to do a lot more at the table for this to be a real problem.
Exactly.
Next is the author. At a glance, the Dungeon Master's game and the setting seems fine, but the players will soon find themselves in an extreme railroad plot that must be followed. Any attempt to derail the plot train will immediately fail and come with a huge punishment for the attempt. The party is helpless as the Dungeon Master forces the party through a story full of nonsensical events and plot holes, at least until they reach a certain point in the story, where the game screeches to a halt. Why? Well, the Dungeon Master hasn't finished his book yet, and doesn't know what happens next. Turns out the author's less interested in letting you have fun, and more interested in seeing you act out his best-selling story.
I think this is definitely problematic. I think this is worse than annoying, depending on how they're doing it. I've definitely played with DMs who railroad you a bit more. You kind of have to follow their exact linear story, and there is no other option. There's no consequence for not doing it because you just can't not do it.
One of the bright sides really could be that maybe he's a good writer, right? There's always the chance that the railroad experience is fun enough and they have the chops for it, which is why it's I feel like it's maybe bad, but it's not egregious. It can be salvaged in some capacity.
I do think it has to be kind of averaged out on our ranking, because you're right. It's not ideal to have reduced player agency and feel like you're being railroaded, but if they're writing a really good story and everything's just a blast to go through, and you do have some agency, then it could be a totally fun game. And for some newer players who aren't as accustomed to the freedoms of TTRPGs, sometimes that linear storytelling is helpful to them. But on the flip side, you have the bad author who genuinely will not let you deviate from his plan at all. And so I think because you can have something that's annoying at times and something that can't be salvaged, we should average it out at B tier, bad but playable.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that.
Up next is the Control Freak. A Control Freak believes their game should be played in a certain way, and their puzzles have very specific solutions. Any deviation from their vision will cause them to start fixing things to make sure the game goes the way they want. Or else. Control Freak DMs are willing to cause TPKs or simply cheat to get their way. They're usually lucky at getting lots of nat 20 rolls just when they need it the most. Control Freak DMs do a lot of railroading in their games. If they expect the party to storm the castle in an epic battle, they will become very angry when the party tries to sneak into the castle instead. They will do everything in their power to make sure the sneak attempt fails. Guards suddenly have a plus 20 bonus on perception rolls and can see through invisibility with no explanation. They will even go so far as to force a fight with impossible skill check DCs or just not allow any rolls at all. Oh, and if the PCs finish that fight too fast, they will be nerfed or injured in some way because they're too powerful. Lastly, this kind of DM will try to directly control the PCs. They will tell the PC how they feel or try to force the PC to do something out of character because that's what your character would do. Furthermore, they're not above ignoring or changing character backstories to suit their game without the player's consent. If a player misses a session, the DM will take control of the character and do all kinds of things that benefit their vision, while leaving the player with a mess when they return the following session. If you're playing a changeling in disguise from your party, you can expect this sort of DM to invite you to the party without your permission. I don't know why he's calling changelings out there, but anyway, what do you think about this one?
Believe it or not, this is not the one I made, actually, and thanks for letting me out of that cage.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, calling it a control freak, a little bit of a bias against it automatically, but this is worse than the author just out the gate. This is someone who, their story isn't good because the only focus is the control, not the narrative.
I think this is the one, at least thus far, and maybe for the whole list, that most people will have experience with, because there are a lot of DMs that are very controlling. And I've played a game with a very controlling DM. If things didn't go the way he wanted them to, then he would find a way to make it go that way, and you had very little control over things that weren't combat and rolling your dice. But it was still an enjoyable enough game because he still put effort in other places. He was fun to play with. Like, he was controlling, but he wasn't a control freak. I feel like once you get that last little word tacked on, you've gone too far.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that makes it maybe the first and easiest. Don't play no matter what, because this is a person, you've tried everything already. The skill checks keep getting raised. You keep getting PCs randomly killed from DM wrath. This is not salvageable.
It's so not salvageable beyond that in our tier ranking, because the whole fudging dice rolls to the point of the guards are always going to spot you while you're invisible, and they're going to get nat 20s to attack you if you're too powerful, and they're going to force nerf your character. You don't have agency here at all. Like, they may present a little bit less railroading than the author when it comes to the non-main plot points, but they're still going to try and actively force you to do everything their way. So I agree, this is a game I just genuinely cannot play in. If I don't have any agency, if everything I do is overridden, it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, I think that puts it decisively in that D tier. Next, we have the Doormat. The Doormat is a dungeon master that has trouble telling their players no, or will allow game-ruining behavior because they do not want to cause drama or be confrontational. For example, a Doormat dungeon master might allow a player to play an overpowered homebrew character when they want to do a non-homebrew game, or allow PvP in a non-PvP game, just this once. Oh man, I hate that. Which ends with the game falling apart after multiple player character deaths. Usually a Doormat Dungeon Master isn't the main problem, but may enable a that guy player. Note, for readers worried about being a Doormat Dungeon Master, please keep in mind the following. When you're new to a game system, gaming group, or DMing in general, it is normal to not feel like you can put your foot down due to social pressure. It is normal to keep an open mind and rely on your players not to be bad while you are learning what to do. That said, there will come a point where you will have to tell your players no, even if that will make them mad. You need to stand your ground, or players will feel like they can do whatever they want. It's important for a Dungeon Master to keep order and balance in a game to make sure everyone is having fun. If a problem comes up, it should be addressed quickly and in the most fair way possible. If you don't do this, this can lead to normal players being a group of that guys and ruining the game.
I think, for me, this might be the first S tier. This one I think is totally salvageable. There are definitely cases where the DM will just never learn and never tell the players no. But like the person said, it's kind of a newer player issue usually that a lot of people can outgrow. And so I think it's totally salvageable because all it takes, like assuming they're a good DM in the other regards, all this takes is them learning boundaries of what, how to say no, that homebrew is too powerful. Or if you're bad at gauging power level of homebrew, you can totally just say there's no homebrew in my games. It's all by the book.
Yeah, that's fair. The Doormat player is only as bad as their worst player and only as bad as their inexperience. It seems like it improves over time, hopefully, and if not, then there's probably some other circumstances making this bad as well. So I think in terms of a Doormat with a good group is actually going to go pretty decently, I think.
A Doormat DM with a group of really good players, you might not even notice an issue. If they're a good DM in the other regards, and they're good at storytelling, good at the NPCs, good at combat, and they do everything else well, but they're a Doormat, if they have good players who aren't pushing things and trying to get unbalanced homebrew in and trying to pull stupid things off with rules and mechanics that totally don't allow for it, then you would never notice it's even a problem. So I think that makes it salvageable.
100%.
Up next is the Drunken Homebrewer. This DM absolutely loves to add new rules, bans, and homebrew stuff to their game. This wouldn't normally be a problem, but this DM makes so many changes that their game becomes extremely unbalanced and confusing to play. It takes time to learn new rules, and the Drunken Homebrewer usually has a list of rules a mile long that conflict with each other. Some DMs will try to make their own campaigns or entire game systems, but end up underestimating how hard it is, and their games will become unplayable, or they give up midway through while leaving the players high and dry. Most aspiring homebrewers learn to start small, learn from constructive criticism, not be afraid to scrap a bad idea and try again. The Drunken Homebrewer does none of these things. In fact, what truly makes this DM deserve to be on this list is that they cannot handle any kind of criticism. They will react very poorly to any feedback that isn't praising them. To them, their rules in homebrew are perfect, and you are just too dumb to understand their genius.
This is one that there's a lot of caveats. Like, we need to know what those new rules are, those bans are, what those homebrews are. There's maybe some experience behind it. I feel like I'm leaning towards annoying as like a gut feeling, but I'd need more information to know how terrible of a that guy they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, to me, this is bad but playable. It's worse than annoying because annoying would be adding a new thing here and there, but a little too often. Like, I think everybody should play with new things in their game here and there. But what makes this actually kind of bad is they're adding so many things that it's unrecognizable and refuse to take criticism on it. So,
yeah,
to me, that's bad.
I guess because they're not taking any criticism, does that actually even bump them down to C? Because I definitely see the argument for B as well.
It could, yeah, the not taking criticism might bump them down another one. Because I think if they do take criticism, that's what makes it bad but playable. Because if they take criticism and if the players are like, this is a terrible rule, this doesn't flow well, I don't like it, whatever, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're right, let's scrap it, but they keep adding new things and you keep having to have that fight, it's bad but playable. But if they refuse to take criticism, then it is, I do think, yeah, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, I think we'll land it in C probably because it's the drunken homebrewer and just not the argumentative homebrewer.
Exactly.
Next, we have the feature bias Dungeon Master. This Dungeon Master either favors and or hates specific game features such as magic, certain races, or a certain class. Games with this Dungeon Master will center around their favored feature and will usually buff classes or gameplay elements that involve it. For example, if the Dungeon Master favors magic, the world will be a high magic setting where everyone that plays a magical class will get special perks or more loot. If the Dungeon Master hates something in the game, they will make life hard for anyone that tries to use it or nerf it to the point of uselessness. For example, if the Dungeon Master hates magic, their world will typically outlaw magic, make spellcasters heretics, or just flat out nerf the way spells work in game. The Dungeon Master might hate elves and will make them all evil, dirty or some other way to degrade them. It's Drake. Most feature-biased Dungeon Masters will do a combination of the above.
I think this one, I think it's two-tiered. The first tier I think is annoying, but that's it. If it's a feature bias to the point where they're like, they really like magic items, or they really like spellcasters, and so their world tends to lean a little bit more into favoring that, it's annoying if you're not playing that, but that's typically all it is, as long as they still balance things. The issue with this comes in with where they actually, it's a detriment if you're not the other things. The DMs who ban magic, I've played in games where magic is not allowed. You can't play a spellcaster. And as long as everybody's on board with it and the DM has a reason for it, it can still be totally fine. But if they hate magic to the point where you choose to play a sorcerer, and then everywhere you go, the second you cast a cantrip, your face is on a wanted poster, you're being hunted and killed, that's a problem. Like that is absolutely an issue. So I think, to me, this is bad but playable because I've heard many stories of people who do play with DMs like this and they make it work. But to me, the second you actually start to hinder the players because of your feature bias, it becomes bad.
Yeah, I think the worst case scenario here is when they like underplay how much they kind of favor one thing over another.
Yeah,
like
if
sometimes
they don't tell you in session 0 that magic is outlawed everywhere, and then they spring that on you in session 1 after you've already built your sorcerer, that's a problem.
Or yeah, like there's a situation too where they'll say, oh, if you play a tiefling, some people won't trust you, and then it's just outright like you're banned from entering every town in the entire setting. Like there's definitely like a scale here. So I think more times than not, like you're saying, it's probably in the B tier, but it can definitely plummet pretty quickly, mattering on the campaign setting.
Yeah. All right, up next is, and this is already, I think I know where I'm going to rank this one, the Fetishist. This DM has some sort of fetish or obsession and will constantly subject the party to whatever it is. They will never fade to black when dealing with content and will go into an extensive amount of detail describing anything related to their fetish. Fetishist DMs have a really bad habit of not taking a hint when things get uncomfortable. Note, if you're dealing with a fetishist DM and they start making you or the party uncomfortable with their actions, immediately tell them to stop. If they refuse, insult you, or try to give excuses like realism, you should quit the game as soon as possible and never play with them again. Remember, you are playing a game to have fun. Having to listen to the fetishist DM describe horrible acts isn't fun for anyone but them.
Yeah, is there like a straight to jail option? I feel like this is an easy D.
This is such an easy D tier. Like, there are people who enjoy things being a little bit more ERP focused. Sure, if you find a group of people who's all on board with that, you do you. But even in that instance, there needs to be expectations and boundaries and all that. And to me, if I'm in a game where they're constantly trying to force some kind of sexual scenario that they're fetished with on the players, that is an immediate, I'm walking away from your table.
This is definitely one of those scenarios where usually when it comes to a setting, focusing on the realism isn't that important. I feel like rule of cool is more important. You know, the fun's the most important part, like you were saying, in any campaign setting. So once you have to start arguing with your players till you're blue in the face about, no, I need this for my grimdark setting, it's really important the scene happens, I feel like you've lost the plot.
Yeah, like you can argue realism in a lot of cases, and some things that are realistic make people uncomfortable, and with some groups, that's okay. That builds tension. This, I think, is one of those things that does not build tension and is not okay. If you're including something like this, you're going too far.
Yeah, straight to D tier and maybe straight to jail.
Yeah, ideally straight to jail.
Next up, we have the Miser. Miser Dungeon Masters are extremely stingy when it comes to giving the party loot, money, or experience. These Dungeon Masters will dramatically reduce the rewards the party normally receives from combat and quests. As a result, the player characters are always underpowered and every encounter becomes way more difficult than it should be. Some Miser Dungeon Masters will take this a step further and actively steal money and items from the party. It is not uncommon for this Dungeon Master to strip the party of all items in session 1 and slowly give the party scraps of items and money in a piecemeal fashion for the entire game. Wizards, they will steal your spellbook. Good luck getting it back or even creating another one. Another version of this Dungeon Master is the Information Miser. This version loves to keep information from the party, usually behind skill checks the party didn't know they needed to take. In their mind, your party should have been asking to make those unknown skill checks you didn't know that you needed. This Dungeon Master doesn't believe in passive perception and will repeatedly ambush your party with enemies or force you to miss hidden items because you didn't tell the Dungeon Master you want to make a perception check. The Miser Dungeon Master in either case will always shift the blame for these actions back to the players, claiming you should have known better.
I think to a degree, a DM being kind of a Miser DM is salvageable. Like I've played games where level 1 through 5 or later, you're penny pinching. That can build a different kind of play style, and it definitely helps keep the party from getting too powerful too quick. But the Information Miser is what pushes this further down for me. And the stealing your stuff and stripping the party of everything in session 1 and getting rid of your spellbook, like that is all very annoying and could just be completely impossible to play with depending on what you're playing. But the Information Miser aspect to me is what makes it potentially B tier. Like normally I would say A annoying, but information wise, I think it goes down to B for bad.
I kind of agree with that, and also this kind of strikes me as the person who, when they finally give you a magic item, a rust monster's like right around the corner to destroy that new sword.
And that's not fun. Like having some risk and losing items, like that happens. You're not a Miser DM if you have a rust monster in your game, right? But if you give your party some really cool gear and then it gets stolen while they're sleeping in the middle of the next night and they can't do anything about it and they never get it back, you're just being an asshole.
Yeah, think about every video game ever when you're in an RPG and you become really cool in endgame and then that second game comes and you're powered down to 0 at the very beginning of it.
Yeah, it's exactly what it feels like.
It feels so bad every time. It's not a great character moment if it's done more than once, trust me. I agree with what you're saying here. I think this goes straight to B, and it could be better or worse mattering on how much of a miser they really are.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if they're stingy about money and spell components, that could be fine. But if they're like, well, you didn't ask to make the religion check when the goblins ambushed you, why would I? Why would I ask? I'm being ambushed by goblins. Do I notice something or not?
Exactly. That would not be anyone's first thought, and putting on the players is just not fun.
Up next is the Monkey Paw DM. This DM will send players on missions, and when they complete the task and collect the rewards, there will always be some unforeseen and tragic outcome. For example, the local Merchants Guild asks you to clear out the bandits that have been attacking their trade routes and has made it hard to bring supplies to this remote town the party is visiting. After taking out the bandits, it's revealed that they were giving a portion of their stolen riches to a dragon. The dragon is angered that he is no longer receiving treasure from the bandits and decides to burn down the town. The DM gave no hints that the bandits were doing this, and now their efforts to save the town from being cut off from the rest of the world has resulted in it outright being destroyed. The danger of this kind of DM is that eventually the players will become less ambitious and opt for the most boring missions that they can because they know that all their successes will just be stripped away from them later. The characters will fear that every new shiny magic weapon is cursed and that their next quest will somehow throw the entire kingdom into a civil war because of whatever power vacuum the heroics will cause.
I feel like the worst thing about this kind of Dungeon Master too, it's kind of like that wish, that like Jinn wish that always tricks you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the monkey paw. Like, it's, you get a wish, but, right?
Yeah. Anytime you set up the DM to like just stab you and twist that knife, it can be fun if it's done once. If it's every single time, the party will just roll over and not want to do anything.
Right. Well, and I think kind of an example of this done once and in a good way could even be Vox Machina, right? The group goes, finds out there's a dragon, they are hunting it down, they finally get it killed, and that brings the entire rest of the dragons to destroy the entire town. Like, that wasn't an intended outcome. That sucks, but it was very important for the plot. If you do that once or twice as a plot point, then it can be fine. But if that is every single time, it's gonna make it really bad really fast.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like that's why it might be can't be salvaged, or could be bad but playable. I'm kind of on the fence with this one, actually.
I think the fact that it's taken so far as to everything being monkey pod. The magic items, I mean, you should always worry about a magic item being cursed, but not every magic item should be cursed. You should be looking for the unintended consequences of actions and quests, but you shouldn't have an entire town destroyed just because you stopped the bandit raids, you know? I feel like the fact that the way it's written is this DM intentionally pushes everything you do to the bad side, makes it not salvageable.
Yeah, I think C tier is the right spot for this then. The Monty Hall, a classical bad game master, but usually one of the more harmless types and usually a very new one. These are the ones who are earnestly trying to get the players to have a good time, but the only way they can think of doing this is to shower the players with rewards. They ignore things like loot tables or wealth by level guidelines, just drop that Vorpal Sword and Book of Exalted Deeds in the nest of a level 3 Goblin camp, and give the party a free level up at the end of every session. These game masters are usually motivated by a desire to get to the good stuff, and so tried to get the players fighting dragons as soon as possible, ignoring that you can in fact simply have players start at level 10 or so. They tend to set up rather basic encounters that in no way are equipped to handle the ridiculously overpowered player characters, and from there, two outcomes tend to happen. Either the game fizzles out after the players get bored, or the game master gets bored because their encounters keep getting easily flattened.
I think this one, to me, is salvageable, kind of in the doormat way of it takes experience to break out of this sometimes. I totally get that you want to give the players a good time and a good experience, and sometimes for some people, the best way to do that is with rewards, but you got to find rewards that aren't just a Vorpal Sword, you know?
Yeah, it's one of these things where there is too much of a good thing, and sometimes a new Dungeon Master doesn't exactly understand why there is like a wealth by level guideline cap style table, so I feel like that's just they're suffering from not knowing when to hold back.
Yeah, and this can also be countered, like you can have a quite magic item heavy campaign if the threats also increase to match. You don't want the threats to be so much so that, yeah, your player has a Vorpal Sword and 12 hit points, so they're going to instantly die when they actually get hit by something. You don't want that degree, but I feel like this is something that could definitely be experienced out of. and depending on how they're doing it is maybe just fine. I've noticed this mostly with younger players too, where they just want the good stuff. They just want the items. They just want to fight dragons. And so if you got a group of people like that, then they're going to enjoy the game. To me, personally, I think D&D up to level like 8 to 10 is the best you'll have in a campaign. I like the earlier grindy stuff. I think that the most fun you'll have is when you can't just cast Power Word Kill or use your sword to instantly decapitate somebody, when you have to actually strategize and budget, and it makes it feel like you're earning your existence as opposed to it being handed to you.
I definitely agree with that here. That's why I feel like this guy's mostly harmless. He is stealing a little bit of the fun, but it's not even as malicious as a lot of the other ones on this list.
Right. I think this is an S tier salvageable. I mean, this is potentially fixable with one conversation, you know.
Absolutely.
Up next is the Nihilist. This DM likes to spoil the party's victories and guilt trip them hard when they fail at something. Save the farmer's wife from the kidnappers? She's traumatized and will never be the same. Brought the corrupted mayor to justice? He couldn't be convicted due to a technicality, and the people have lost faith in their government and are plotting civil war. Failed to remove the demons from the forest nymph spring? The woods are now permanently corrupted, with most of the animals dead and everything else was enslaved and taken to an infernal plane. Playing with a Nihilist DM completely sucks the fun out of the game. Nothing your party does amounts to anything worthwhile. Eventually, the party and the players will ask themselves, why are we doing this if nothing matters? With a Nihilist DM, the depressing conclusion of the game was decided before the campaign began.
So this is basically an author, but he's a sad boy, I guess, which has to put him lower than the author is.
It feels like a hybrid between the author and the monkey paw. Like, everything you do has a consequence. Even the good stuff you do has a very, very bad consequence. And that consequence is railroading you. It's not just, oh, here's a surprise twist. It's, well, this was how it's going to be from the beginning. And now you may have done a good thing, but it actually changed nothing.
Yeah, I actually do think there's parties that might enjoy this. But obviously, if you're telling, your DM to not be such a buzzkill, this is going to be something that's not fun for the table. If he's considered that guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably leaning towards this can't be salvaged. If you're talking to the guy, he's like, no, you don't understand. Everything's awful all the time. Nothing you do matters. It's like, yeah,
I agree.
Nihilism isn't fun for a game, usually.
Right. Because the argument can be made that it's like B tier bad but playable because, it's just railroading and maybe you don't like the vibe of the campaign. Sure, that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the DM that actively makes everything suck for you. And that's just, I don't think that's salvageable.
Yeah, definitely. The player bias Dungeon Master. This Dungeon Master is either playing favorites with their players or has it out for someone. If the Dungeon Master has a favorite player, that player can do no wrong. They will get extra experience, items, and may very well be the main character of the game, while everyone else is pushed to the background. The Dungeon Master's behavior may enable the favorite to become a that guy player, which will make the game even worse. Alternatively, the Dungeon Master hates a specific player and will make that player's life hell in-game. This includes nerfs being specifically targeted in combat, or having NPCs being rude to the player for no in-game reason.
This might be a bit extreme of a ranking for me out the gate, but to me, this is D tier. Like, they might be a good DM in a lot of other regards, and if the favoritism is like, oh, it's the DM's girlfriend and she's new to the game, so he's taking it a little easy on her, that's one thing. But if they're legitimately, especially the hating a player thing, like, if they're going out of their way to make one player have nothing but a great time and ignoring the rest of the party, or ignoring the rest of the party just so that one player can be miserable, you should not be playing at that table on either end.
Yeah, I thought that was maybe too harsh at first, but I do kind of agree that as a Dungeon Master, you're supposed to be making sure everyone's having a good time. So if you're making sure just one person is having a good time, or you're making sure one person's having a hell of a time, like, that is not your job. You are, at that point, you're like a day one hater or a day one glazer kind of deal.
Yeah,
you are
the
not
number of
a good
horror
DM.
Stories, the number of horror stories that I've read that were about a player biased DM who was favoring a player because they wanted to hook up with them or something is very problematic. So I think part of the issue also comes with why there's the bias. Again, there could be cases where it's not that bad, but there could also be cases where it's just a don't even touch the table.
Yeah, most RPG horror stories have some aspect of player bias, so that probably does make them a D tier by that alone.
Yeah, and the reason I say it's worse than can't be salvaged is because, I mean, it obviously can't be salvaged. If there's a permanent fixture of favoritism or hatred, the only fix is for that other player to leave. And
exactly.
If the option is for one or two specific people to leave, that makes it a don't even bother playing, because you never know which seat you're going to be in when you get there. You don't know if it's just bad for everyone or solely bad for you.
Yeah, and if that person that's the spotlight leaves, you never know if you're going to be the next person too. There's always that aspect.
Or the campaign could just end. Like, that's happened too. Oh, my favorite person left the group. No more game.
Yeah, it's not worth me DMing anymore because I was just really doing it for that person.
Yeah. The Power Trip DM. This DM is not playing the game with you. He is playing against the party, and he will win. This DM doesn't do this immediately with rocks fall, everyone dies. That would be too easy. And this sort of egotistical DM loves to make the players suffer and struggle for their amusement. Power Trip DMs will take every opportunity to screw over the PCs. Fail a skill check, the worst possible outcome happens. Specialize in a specific form of combat like fire magic, you will always encounter enemies that are resistant or immune to fire from that point forward. Did you miss a session? Expect your PC to be missing items, experience, or be flat out dead when you come back the following week. Expect negative things to happen without any rolls or saves. If the DM does give you anything nice, expect them to take it back almost immediately. Found a nice magical sword? Good, because you'll need it to fight the dozen or so rust monsters in the next room. We were just talking about that. Got a cool NPC follower? They're gonna die and you can't stop it. Raise the NPC? His soul was stolen immediately after he died. Rescue his soul? Haha, no.
This is definitely an annoying Dungeon Master to face. It's a little bit better than the Control Freak just because I understand that they're trying to win. There's like a reason. It's not like I'm mad that you're trying to oppose me. It's like, hey, we're both playing back and forth combat and I just want to win this.
I think if it's a Power Trip DM in the sense of they see it as them versus the players, it's problematic. But yeah, it's not as bad as a Control Freak personally. But if you can't win, if they're actively doing what they can to kill a player, that sucks. But if the DM rolls poorly, the player rolls well, and the player survives, then it's a fight. But if there is no hope of survival, if the DM is just every time going to screw you over and kill you or remove your items or whatever, that makes it far less playable.
Yeah, I feel like the fair version of this guy that doesn't make them that guy is if they're like trying to be a war gamer, making fun, interesting encounters. But specifically, this one is tipping the scales in his favor, which means it's still annoying. It's probably even... Can it be salvaged in this case, do you think?
I think to the degree that this was written, it's a C tier, can't be salvaged, personally. Because it doesn't say that you can win. That's the biggest thing. If you can win against the power gamer, then it's probably bad but playable. But if you can't win, if there will always be something that hits you down again and again and again until you lose, then it can't be salvaged.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's put this in the C tier. The Retconner. The Retconner will constantly let the party take actions only to regret it after the session is ended. At the beginning of the next session, they'll make it clear that a different outcome occurred, and then just expect everyone to go along with it since they are the Dungeon Master. This may be even more frustrating than railroading because instead of taking away agency in the moment, it gets your hopes up that the story was going one way only for it to be ripped away from you after the fact. Taking notes as a member of the party will only lead to disappointment as the Dungeon Master changes more and more of the world that you have become invested in. While it is okay to change things here and there for the sake of cohesion within the world, the Retconner constantly changes their story to the point that there doesn't seem to be any consistency outside the fact that you know that next session things will change again.
I think this is bad but playable personally. It's definitely not ideal. It's just kind of another form of railroading.
No, I definitely agree. It's another form of railroading. It's a little different than the author who is kind of putting the brakes on everything because they're afraid what to do next. Instead, they let you do it and then they kind of like backseat criticize you and change it after the fact. So I find it a little more annoying.
It doesn't even seem like they're criticizing you as much as just saying, actually. And like it said, sometimes you got to do that. And it can definitely be annoying, but if they do it here and there, hey, actually, I'm changing it up a little bit. The mayor from last time was actually an orc, and he, at the end of the session, after you killed the invading orcs, he actually turned against you guys, and we're going to pick up there. That's a big change, but maybe there's a reason for it plot-wise. If it's infrequent, so be it. But if they're like full-blown, hey, I know you guys killed the Lich last session, but I'm actually going to say you didn't, that's a pretty big problem. Unless there's a dedicated plot reason. You know, a Lich, bad example. But hey, you guys killed the dragon last time and got all of its loot. Actually, you didn't. It almost killed you and you ran away. That's a bad retcon.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. Sometimes if this guy's a newbie too, maybe he just wasn't able to improv in the moment, and now he's like establishing what he should have said, but kind of got stumbled on his words. So it isn't the worst thing here. I think putting it in B is probably fair.
You know, especially because let's say you are playing through a module and you finish a section and then you read the beginning of the next section and you're like, oh shit, this person has to be alive. And I killed them off. Sometimes you have to retcon something like that. I would encourage you to find a way to make it work. But some people struggle with that, and that can be understandable.
I totally agree with that.
The realist. The realist wants their games to be more realistic. What that means exactly depends on the game and the setting, but it usually translates into extra rules that are annoying instead of adding immersion. For example, it is realistic that you need to eat a balanced diet to maintain a healthy body. This sort of DM might create a rule that you need to keep track of what you eat and how much you eat each day, and if you do not meet certain thresholds, you take stat penalties. Does that sound fun? No, it's tedious, annoying, and adds nothing to the game. Furthermore, these rules usually affect the PCs, but not the NPCs. It would be cool if you could somehow use the rule to weaken enemies before a fight, but most DMs will not track this information because they would have to do so for dozens of NPCs, and that would be tedious and annoying.
I feel like if anyone's ever played Skyrim or like an RPG where you download mods for survival, for like weather, food, disease, it's stuff that sounds fun at first, and then it just sucks. It really does suck. You just want to go back to playing Skyrim.
I was gonna take it there, but go a different direction. I won't play without those mods. Like not to the excessive extremes, but yeah, by any means. I don't put mods on where if I don't bathe once a week, then I have penalties. You know, that's a little excessive, but I do like the mods where you have to eat, you have to drink. I run mods where food doesn't heal you. It provides bonuses to like your endurance or something, but it doesn't directly heal you. And I like those kinds of things. So to me, the realist is not the worst case if they don't take it too far. There's always a too far with realism.
Yeah, even when I'm playing it, I'm frustrated. It's only ever like annoying, right? It's not the worst. And maybe on the table, some people like encumbrance rules. Some people like various different like homebrew rules for survival. So I think for most tables, it'd be annoying, but it's not bad.
I agree. I think it's A tier annoying.
The roleplay enforcer. Some dungeon masters like the roleplay and others do not. But with this Dungeon Master, role-playing is mandatory. The roleplay enforcer will constantly yell at you to stay in character. You may not say anything out of character during the game. You may not even be allowed to ask basic gameplay questions to the Dungeon Master. Breaking character at any time is considered metagaming, and your player character will be punished for it. Another variety of this Dungeon Master will require you to play out every action you do in-game. No time skips for convenience. You can't just go from one town to another town with a few random encounters. You need to role play out the traveling. Another example would be you can't just buy a few items from the local general store. You need to role play haggling for everything.
I think that this is something that depends on your table. I think the examples they gave maybe go a bit too far with the whole punishing you for asking a gameplay question. But I mean, I like when the players are shopping, if they want to roleplay the shopping thing, I'm not going to make them do it if they don't want to. And if they want to roleplay out buying 50 chickens and a bucket and some ball bearings and some rope, then yeah, that gets very excessive and time consuming. But if you want to roleplay out talking to the blacksmith about your custom boots, go for it. I have no issue with that. I'm going to have fun.
The worst case scenario with this too, it's not as bad as some other ones. It's a pacing issue, which it can kill the momentum of a game, but there's stuff that kills games a lot quicker than pacing issues.
Well, and depending on the players, it might not kill the momentum of the game. Your players, you might have a group of 4 or 5 people who will be happy spending 2 hours in a shop talking to the shopkeep. I'm not that guy. I'll spend a little bit of time there, but I'm not gonna spend 2 hours. But you might have people who are really into that. So I think this is, again, these are all very much like on a scale, but if we average it out, I think this one's salvageable because it just depends on the group.
Yeah, I think it's definitely salvageable. I see this not ruining nearly as many campaigns as the other ones on this list. It's maybe a little worse than a Doormat or a Monty Hall, but it's totally okay. I think it's salvageable.
I agree. And it goes into not every player is fit for every table, and not every table is fit for every player. If you are playing with a DM who's very roleplay heavy like this, ideally not so far as forcing you to stay in character and not asking game questions, that is a problem. But if they're just very, very roleplay focused and you are not a roleplay kind of character or kind of player, then there's nothing wrong with you saying it's not the game for me, because if the 3 other people at the table are having a blast staying in character the whole time, then the game's succeeding for the most part. The Seeker of Darkness. The Seeker of Darkness is the DM who wants to make things dark and gritty. Their setting will be grim dark. They will touch upon a lot of adult themes, including things like murder, and give the player characters virtually no agency to make things better. Because things are realistic. That means that the entire world is out to get you. Every encounter will, by design, try to kill you, and not just kill you, but erase you from the entire multiverse, so there's no way to revive you. Because things are grim dark. They will try to put moral situations to you, which are supposed to be deep moral dilemmas, but in actuality, every moral choice is simply choosing whether you're going to kill these 5,000 children. They claim to be morally gray, but forget the part where there has to be good sides. Even the good guys will be absolutely despicable.
I mean, I love Warhammer 40k and grimdark as much as the next person, but even that has a little levity. Everything can't be dark all the time. You can't be killing orphanages after orphanages all the time and expect your players to be enjoying themselves.
Yeah, this ties into the realism DM for sure. They're very similar. It's just, I think, the scale to which they take it. To me, like the grimdark stuff, people like that, and I like running some dark fantasy games. Don't get me wrong, one of my favorite games I've ever run was a dark fantasy game. But you still have to have moments of light in your dark game, because otherwise it's just sad and depressing. Actually, the Curse of Strahd 5e module says that. In the beginning, it says this is a dark setting. Bad things happen to good people. It sucks. Make sure there are moments for laughter. Make sure there's moments of light. Make sure there's moments for rest, because if it's nothing but misery, people are going to be miserable.
Yeah, and again, it's a game where you're supposed to be having fun. Similar to realism, if it cuts into the fun too much, it means that no one else is having a good time. Maybe you love talking about grimdark stuff, but there's some edgy poetry you can probably write in the corner of a tavern yourself, if that's what you're trying to do.
I think this is bad but playable because we know people play it. The whole grimdark thing. There's a whole large group of people who exclusively do grimdark stuff. So yeah. I think it's bad but playable because it excludes a large chunk of people, but there are technically people who want nothing but this from their DMs.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. The Spotlight Stealer. This Dungeon Master has one or more DMPCs that are way stronger than the party and will never let you forget it. The Dungeon Master wants players to worship their DMPCs as the most ultra cool badasses in the world. In reality, they are Mary Sue characters that the party hates. A common theme with this sort of Dungeon Master is to send the party up against something that they can't win against, only for their awesome and powerful DMPC to swoop in and save the day. The DMPC will always one-up the party and make kill bosses, take the best loot, or force in-game events to be about them instead of the party. In fact, the DMPC is so strong that they could solo the campaign without breaking a sweat, but will force the party to do it instead while insulting them for being weak. Don't try to fight the DMPC because the Dungeon Master will just smite you for attacking his precious OC.
You and I have in the past talked about DMPCs, and with the Dungeon Lunch Break crew we've talked about DMPCs, and we're all kind of on the same page of sometimes it's fine. Like if you have a character, an NPC that the party takes to and they want to travel with them and you're running them kind of yourself, that can be done all right. This is the situation where it's not done all right.
Yeah, there can always be that cool situation where you have a mentor character that carries you through maybe an encounter here and there when you really want them to show up, and then when they're finally struck down, you fighting the big bad evil guy and beating them makes it that much sweeter. But that is not the situation. This is someone who will never give you that moment, no matter what.
However, again, though, technically, because there are so many games that have this kind of thing occurring with this heavy of a DMPC, I don't think we can rate it any lower than bad but playable. Because, again, assuming the rest of the game is all right, and it's just their DMPC that's infuriating, you can still play the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You're never going to have like a satisfying ending to most sessions, but a lot of the rest of the session might be entertaining.
Twist DM. This DM loves to use huge dramatic twists in their stories that are meant to be mind-blowing, but end up ruining the game instead. These DMs will straight up lie to you at session 0 about the sort of game you'll be playing, only for them to pull the rug out from under you later on. Plot-wise, you can expect these common plot cliches. It was all just a dream. You were in a simulation. Time travel. Other examples of this include, the rogue suddenly attacks you. Wait, I thought we were not doing PvP in this game. Surprise, it actually is a PvP heavy game. You open the chest and inside you find a lightsaber. We're playing D&D. Actually, no, this isn't a high fantasy D&D game. It's a Star Wars sci-fi game. Twist DMs always think they're more clever than they are and do not care about the angry feedback they get from their players.
The thing that really stands out to me about this type of that guy DM is the fact that sometimes it's not that the twist is to punish the players, it's just genuinely like a bad plot line.
Yeah, at first I was gonna say not the worst thing in the world, you know, it's they're pulling some twists on you. If they lie to you in session 0 about what kind of game you're playing and then they pull a bait and switch, that can definitely suck, especially if you're playing with randos at a game store or something. But to be honest, if someone told me that we were going into a high fantasy game and it turned out that it was going to be some kind of undead apocalypse game, but the first session was that transition, if I trusted the person and they made sure that nobody built a character that would just be screwed in that, you could still have a fun time.
Yeah, I was about to say, if the entire character of a player was based on a specific plot point and that's bait and switched, that would suck. But otherwise, it could actually land. You know, sometimes the chaos can be fun.
Yeah, but finding a lightsaber and suddenly you're playing a Star Wars setting, that's a bit much of a twist for my take. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't play a Star Wars game, but I wouldn't want to suddenly shift to Star Wars when I'm still wielding a crossbow.
I definitely get that. Does that mean this can't be salvaged in that scenario?
I'm borderline there, yeah, because it's nowhere near as egregious as some of the others, like the Can't Be Salvaged and below. I kind of want to say bad but playable, but really, how playable is it? Like, if things are constantly changing up on you, I mean, it is technically playable, but if you at all like a certain setting or like your character as they are and the story as it's developing, this table is not for you, because that will never linger for more than a session or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it makes sense to put in C tier. We actually put like all the twist ones, like the nihilism one, the monkey paw, all of them ended out in C, just because it's not fun to tell the players one thing and completely reverse it on them, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's the good theme, yeah, is for sure C tier.
The unknown party. I've lost track of the number of dungeon masters who want to design the entire party and then keep their abilities, histories, etc. a secret, handing out character sheets when players show up, and forcing players to figure out who and what their characters are. Again, this can work if the entire table has bought in and they're down for it, but most dungeon masters who propose this idea seem affronted that they'd have to actually make a pitch and get their players interested to run this game effectively. It also seems to come from control freak dungeon masters who are terrified of giving players full agency. If a player knows nothing about their character, there's less for them to get invested in. The same issue with randomly rolling a player character and just taking what you get, which can be a problem.
So I have another term for this kind of game, and it's one that I've run a couple times and we've had a blast with, and it's an amnesia game. You wake up in a cold stone room, there's a bunch of other people around you, the rest of the party. You don't know who you are, you don't know who they are. Here is a character sheet, fill out the things as I reveal them to you. But the entire group had already opted into that kind of game. I told them I was curious about running a game like that, and they were like, yeah, sounds fun, and they knew it was coming. That's, I think, the contingency here. If you can run it well, and it's fun for everyone, and you're not gatekeeping everything about their characters, you actually do give them those little bits of information, then you can have a fun time with it. But it definitely can go too far where you're telling people, hey, don't bother making characters, I'll have that for when you get here, and they're like, okay, whatever, weird, but okay. And then they get there, and then it's this whole pseudo railroaded, I'm in control of everything, you don't actually own your player thing. That's a problem.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like people being on board with the premise is important here. It's a great one shot to try out with the table that's down to play it, but I do kind of agree that this is like one step worse than a Control Freak when it's not pitched originally, because you're essentially taking the agency of the story and the setting and going a step further, you took away the agency of literally making the character.
Yeah, if you don't have it cleared, then I would say don't even just sit down and play at that point. Like it probably can't be salvaged at that point. Like if they run it well and you're surprised, but it's not a bad game, then don't even sit at the table. But I really think that if you aren't getting the full approval of your players before running this, that it's a full miss.
Yeah, no, this is a situation where a session 0 would take this from D tier to maybe like even fun. You're not even that guy.
Yeah,
but
you're not even on the tier list. It's just a good time.
Yeah, for the time being, I guess because you didn't have the session 0, unfortunately, you are in the don't even play at this table tier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. On the assumption that there is no session 0, players did not agree to this, D tier. Well, Luke Goblin, thanks for finally letting me come over to your place and not just be recording in the tavern. This is a nice street.
I mean, it is the alley behind your tavern that I moved my cart to, but it's nice to be at my place for once, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's nice.
Maybe next time we'll cover that guy players, because honestly, as much as we like dunking on DMs, we are DMs, so we gotta riff a little bit and take our frustration out about players next time around.
I'm totally down for that.
Make sure to check out Zill from the Twisted Pine Tavern. I'm going to put his link in the description below, and then you can always click on the collab feature to see his name right there where my channel name is as well. He's putting out some great content. As always, guys, thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and hype the video as it really helps the channel grow, and subscribe to both channels if you haven't already. I hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now.
Farewell for now.